As Walt Disney Imagineering, Disney's creative design department that builds everything for its theme parks, continues to steamroll ahead towards the destruction of Rivers of America at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, a number of former Imagineers have voiced their displeasure over WDI's currently proposed plans. Chief among them is Eddie Sotto, a renowned former Imagineer who worked on a myriad of projects for Disney in the 1990s. Unfortunately, Sotto has also reiterated the issue, within the halls of WDI anyway, is closed. Let's talk about what former Imagineering legends are saying about this truly despised project here on That Park Place.
All right, let's talk about this one. I was not happy about this story when I saw it, but it's also not entirely surprising. Disney knows fans oppose Rivers of America destruction and Cars expansion and doesn't care. Former Imagineer confirms the issue is closed. This is from Marvin Montanaro of That Park Place. Former Senior VP of Concept Design for Walt Disney Imagineering, Eddie Sotto, has confirmed that Disney is fully aware of the fan backlash over its plans to demolish Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island at Magic Kingdom and simply doesn't care. Vash, I'm sure that you are more suited to explaining who Eddie Sotto is than I am.
Eddie Sotto is a famous Imagineer, worked with the company for a number of years, especially during its very prolific time during the second generation of Imagineers, I'd say, about the mid to late 1980s to about maybe the very, very early 2000s is when that second generation really got going there. And he is most well known for his work on Disneyland Paris's Main Street. It was the one that led that specific project right there, but did a number of things for the Disneyland Resort in subsequent years that really, really did transform that park. For example, I believe he did the staircase, winding railings and so forth that you see atop of the queue for Pirates of the Caribbean. He also worked on Disneyland's Main Street and implementing a lot of the techniques and things that he learned for Disneyland Paris's Main Street over to that specific version of it. A lot of stuff for Adventureland, voiceover work, and so forth. I mean, very prolific, very remarkable Imagineer. You might not know the name, but you know the work.
Yeah, and that's how it often is with a lot of Imagineers, that they get their recognition a little bit later as opposed to in the actual time that they're active. I don't know why it works that way at Disney. There is a part where when you know the Imagineers' names during the project, it can cause some interesting issues. Like Tiana's Bayou Adventure, there were a lot of people running out in front of that parade there, and it didn't turn out very well. We also know that there are certain Disney executives high up in the park segment that don't like their name attached to a project until after they're sure it was already a success. I'm not calling Eddie Sotto that. I think Eddie Sotto does great work. But continuing on, even where Sotto seems to suggest that some within Imagineering, or perhaps former Imagineers like himself, have tried and failed to talk Disney out of it. Look at that right there. Is that not more beautiful than the Rivers of America right there? Sotto responded to a concerned fan on X who pled for Imagineers to push back against Disney's decision to erase a piece of American and Disney history. Look at that. It's Doc Epcot right there. Eddie, sorry to intrude on this post, but is it possible you can get a group of Imagineers together and contact whoever it is in Burbank and tell them to please stop their plans to destroy Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island? Well said, Doc Epcot. Eddie Sotto says, others have tried and failed. As far as I know, the issue is closed. WDI is already well aware of the social media posts, issues, and opinions. It's really sad, Vash.
It is very, very sad. He had some extended thoughts about that as well, which I thought were pretty good and worth sharing here. Eddie Sotto went on to say, the issue may be closed and life will go on, but I'd like to say that losing the river is not just about nostalgia. It's about a subconscious contrast that gives the other lands their immersive impact. Sleek metal future versus vast untamed nature. Chocolate and peanut butter. Stepping from one into another makes the immersion experience fun and impossible, even in energy level. Parks are now adding decompression lawns, but the river and Tom Sawyer's Island played that role for decades. Parks should be designed holistically and emotionally. EU is emphasizing this contrast with its, quote, portals, Epic Universe, that is. Just a thought. And I think that's spot on right there. I know, like Tom Orris, for example, has talked about this. Well, another famous Walt Disney Imagineer, who has said that, like, look, rivers, they're full of water. They're not necessarily maximizing on the space. Obviously, it's limited capacity, all that, but it adds so much dramatic decompression to these parks and provides an atmosphere that you can't really get anywhere else, that it's so critical for a castle park to have that. And this has been a specific feature for these castle parks for years. In fact, Disney parks themselves put out a tweet in April of 2019 that said this: Disney parks all over the world still bear many personal marks of Walt Disney himself, and Tom Sawyer's Island is perhaps one of the most personal. That was Disney Parks that put that out on their official Twitter account right there. So they understood how important this was. And that's why Josh D'Amaro, well, when he actually talked about expanding onto Magic Kingdom through this Cars expansion, didn't actually mention where this was going to be, not until 2 days later, after the event had already concluded, after everyone went home. Then they dropped the bombshell on the entire Disney fan community that Rivers of America would be going away for this specific project, which really speaks to maybe the cowardice of Disney Parks leader at this point.
Yeah. That's who is the leader of Disney Parks at this point, by the way?
Well, I mean, the head of Disney Experiences and Products now, I think it's just Disney Experiences, is Josh D'Amaro himself.
Yeah. But there's also a head of Disney World, and there's a head of Disneyland. Now, there is, of course, a rumor going around that they're also thinking about minimizing the Rivers of America out there at Disneyland. I think getting rid of Rivers of America here, I say here, we've obviously got more than one geographic location represented on the panel at Walt Disney World, I should say. That might ease the idea of them getting rid of part at Disneyland, because there's nothing like the ridiculous outrage that you see online. First, there's the outrage at it happening, and then it seems like there's a coordinated campaign to mock the people who are frustrated about it and act like they're whiny babies or something like that. And, to each their own. I think that the park at this point will be lesser for having a Cars Land in the middle of it. I think it'll clash. I think it's probably based off of the current quality of Imagineering projects, whether it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure, whether it's Rise of the Resistance, whether it is Moana's Journey of Water, or the pinnacle of modern Imagineering, Communicore Hall. Expectations are pretty low on whatever it is they've got in the cooker here. And you could be in Imagineering right now saying, no, it's going to be better than that. Well, let's wait till the budgets come out and see if you still believe it in the end. It's not going to look as good as the concept art, I will say that.
And it's certainly not going to look as good as DCA's version of Cars Land, which I think some people might be expecting in this point. Don't do that. Don't do that. Look at the work output like Jonas just listed off here. Or, hey, you know what? Look at all the comments that former Imagineers are having currently right now with the expansion to Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom's Emporium on Main Street right there. That right there is, that's really something. So that's who's doing all this, folks. Do you really have confidence? I don't.
Go and Shogi for $4.99 for the higher ups to care about the park. They'd have to first go into and enjoy the parks. I can't tell you whether or not they go into the parks at this point. Every now and then we see them, and there's a photo op every single time that they do it. Walt, at some point early on in Disneyland, decided that he wanted the Imagineers in there all the time, waiting in the lines. Things like that. And I think that spirit is not necessarily there now. Of course, you have to let them in if they're employees. I don't know. What are the rules? Is there a back entrance that you can go in if you're working? You don't even have to go through the reservation system. Is there a special level of pass that they just let you right into the parks, or do to the employees, even if they're working on something in the parks, do they make them do a reservation? I'm only being half serious on that question.
They do have access. They have special access that they are granted right there in order to go to their projects and so forth. And even when they're not actively working on a project, I believe they have special access that they use in order to get into these parks. Very, very removed from, let's say, Walt's time, where he's like, hey, if you work in these parks, you go there, you wait in line, you actually go through the process of experiencing these parks that you design through the guest's eyes, so that you know exactly what to do, basically, to facilitate a great experience. That is no longer the case.
Yeah. Oh, hey, and CliffLix is here. By the way, if you guys have not seen it, there's a wonderful video on CliffLix's channel about the rivers of America. And I recommend it. If you haven't been to the parks for a while because of the current quality of what Disney is doing, there's just something special about the sights and sounds of Tom Sawyer Island and Rivers of America. Really took me back. CliffLix for $10. Burbank knows we love the rivers of America. The problem is that Burbank hates what we love. Burbank is deliberately giving us the finger. Yeah. I've heard Disney executives say that there's a general consensus at the Burbank area that Walt Disney World in Florida is where the Hicks give us their money. And I wish I could say that the people that I've spoken to and repeated that quote to said, no, that's not true. They just kind of either get quiet or nod along. They don't disagree with the sentiment there.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.